and welcome everyone to the Ginette Biro Podcast. I'm Ginette Biro, and thank you all always for joining me today for the messages that we have coming down the pipe. And today they're from the Three Guides of the Light. And again, it was based on a conversation I was having with them throughout the weekend, which is often how it goes. And the conversation was about how we really are in a dark night of the soul. And now I want to say, for some of you, you may think, well, that doesn't apply to me. I've actually gone through a lot of it. I'm feeling really good. And if that's the case, then yeah, you're absolutely right. Don't let this pull you back into thinking something that isn't. Because I'm talking more specifically here, though, of the humanity's dark night of the soul. And so when I say humanity's dark night of the soul, you may be very well moving through something really deep personally, but you may not. But you may also be experiencing the collective darkness. So that means what that kind of looks like is you may wake up in the morning, everything in your life is technically good and peaceful, but then you have these moments of like, what is this anxiety I'm feeling? I'm feeling something kind of funky, or what is this or that? It's not mine. What's going on? That is the collective dark night of the soul. And so when you are someone who is vibrationally aware of that, if your vibes are a little bit higher, you're attuned to that, you're sensitive, you're intuitive, you're going to naturally pick up on that flow. Now, what you can do with that, first of all, is recognize what's yours and what's not, and choose not to take it on. But I would encourage you, if you have any triggers that come from it, is dive into the triggers. They're just helping you clean out your closet, basically, your metaphorical closet inside your heart and soul. So check into what those are. So before I get too ahead of myself, let's go back to the specific messages of what the Three Guides of Light were saying about everything that's going on with this whole dark night of the soul. So first of all, if we go back to the concept of a dark night of the soul, a dark night of the soul is a time in which we are hitting a pressure point of a breakthrough. And so the dark night of the soul can be one of the tensest, most turmoil-filled, fear-based, worry-inducing times. But what happens is when we make that breakthrough, we shatter these limitations that have held us back, and we actually propel forward that much faster. So with every dark night of the soul, there's immense growth and breakthrough after. And so anytime you reach dark night of the soul, whether it be personally, collective, whether it's just thought-based, personal, actual circumstances in your life, whatever it may be, it's calling you to go deeper. And so right now what's happening is the universe is calling humanity to go deeper. And I have to say, a lot of humanity is listening and responding and asking themselves the questions, because remember, the way to change the world is to change yourself. The world begins to change with one person. And so as humanity is creating this kind of pull on everybody, creating this dark night of the soul with what we're going through, more people are changing faster and faster and faster, which is a good thing. And so what they wanted to mention was that right now, there are a lot of things surfacing. And remember, we talked about that earlier in the year. We talked about the surfacing that would happen this year, right? There would be a lot of rising of truths, a lot of surfacing of things so that we can clean them out. We can't clean them if we can't see them. So we're in the midst of a lot of surfacings right now, which is creating a lot of tension, a lot of fears, and a lot of worries, and understandably so. But the thing is how are you responding to those things? And that's an important thing they wanted to mention, because if you find you're starting to respond with judgments of others and judgments of things as if you know better, you may in fact know a better way, but you're not meeting the person that you're placing the judgment on. You're not meeting them where they're at. And remember, we talked about that, my husband and I talked about that in a podcast, actually, meeting people where they're at. Sometimes when we are in the midst of a panic or an anxiety response, based on things that are happening around us, we will then begin to try and find aspects of control. This is what Spirit wanted to mention. When you're searching for aspects of control, sometimes you try to do that by controlling outwardly. And if you're not conscious about how you're trying to control outwardly, sometimes that starts to be done in judgments or shaming or anything like that external to you. But what happens is that doesn't benefit anybody. What benefits people is to lead by an example, is to cleanse your energies, your aura, your field, your actions, your integrity, so much so that you create a ripple effect outward. And you can then educate people outward with your doings. But we have to remember, when we're educating, we can't tell people the one and only way to do a thing, because again, if you're meeting them where you're at, your one way might be completely opposite of their way, yet the two meet in the middle. That's a really important thing. There's many paths to a similar thing. So we have to ask ourselves, where are our judgments coming from, and are we spending time in judgment? Doesn't mean you can't have an opinion, but a judgment is often more of like an outward expression of a thing shaming the other person, is how it kind of came in the conversation with the three guys. So if you find you're judging, ask yourself why, and why are you being triggered? And why are you being triggered to then place a determined assumption on that person? What does it benefit you? Are you doing it because it's making you feel safe? And if so, you can find other ways to help yourself feel safe where you're not creating an outward negative energy, even if it's by thought. I thought that was pretty powerful, because we can all get caught in judgment pretty easily. So that was one thing. The other thing they wanted to mention was that with this collective energy that's coming in, for those of you that seem to just get caught up in it every once in a while and are wondering what's going on, as humanity is raising its consciousness, they were showing me, there's this circular movement around the planet of the consciousness grid. And what's happening is, as those are raising, it's kind of pulling others, again through the ripple effects, into that moving consciousness. And some that are being pulled up into that aren't quite I could maybe say aren't quite ready. They're ready, but not in full awareness. And so their energy signature is moving and blending with that. And sometimes that energy signature can move past us and we pick it up and it kind of grates because it doesn't quite fit. So what I would recommend is, when you have those moments of anxiety, or you're noticing behaviors in people that you're like, you almost have it, but it doesn't seem like you're quite there, or something grates you about the person for your own energy, send them love back. Send them love and support, however you want to say it in your mind, and change the frequency that you're putting out, because it has an effect whether you think it does or not. It really does. It has an effect. What you put out in the world, and your thoughts and your energy, and especially your words right now, has an effect. And to change things, we have to have an effect with a higher frequency. We can't be changing things with a low frequency of hatred, anger, and shaming. We can be passionate about something and share our passion, but if we're putting people down in it, that's not benefiting the greater collective. So that was that point. The next point I wanted to say was that what was familiar isn't necessarily familiar in the same way anymore. And so some of you may find that, with external circumstances, with, the way we interact with people and that, but also your own energetics inside are changing what is familiar and what's not. So the way in which you used to respond to people, or the way in which you used to feel about a certain thing, might be changing. And most likely that change is a good thing, but when it's unfamiliar, it can sometimes spook us. And so if you're feeling that kind of spook feeling or unsure, just ask yourself, are you in transition of something new and it's actually okay? Or is this something you need to change? Because it could be one of the two. And so they wanted to say, again, what was familiar is not familiar anymore, but this newness is creating the new that we're moving into after this dark night of the soul. A lot of people talk about the new earth and the new world. Well, we're in the midst of creating that as a collective, and I'm talking cosmic collective, right? There's much more involved in this whole ascension of humanity than just the humans on earth. But I mean, that's for the cosmic consciousness circle. Anyways, what's new and this new earth we're creating may not feel familiar at first. But maybe feel it out and get to know what it is and see what new you're creating in your life, which then ripples outwards, as always. And yes, right. Sorry, they're reminding me. The next piece after that was that for some of you who are already deeply on a spiritual path, and I kind of touched on this in the beginning, you may feel like you have already gone through a lot of this, and why should it apply to you now? Or why should this dark night be affecting you? And what that's doing is it's calling you to go even deeper. So those that have reached a certain level of, say, frequency or ascension or knowledge or wisdom, whatever you want to call it, wherever you are, you may be sitting at that part and thinking like, I don't want to go any farther. Like, why am I being pushed to go farther? I don't want to go farther. And it's not about because you haven't done enough. It's a call to go deeper. And I want to explain what I mean by this. So for me, myself, I've reached a point where I can really trust in the messages that I bring through from spirit, the messages I bring through in channeling. I've done that enough times that I can really trust it. And so I've kind of reached that level, right? For me, my own level, my own gauge, right? I've reached that level. And I've always had an ability to tune in and ask questions and kind of know where things are going or know what's happening in my own life. And so what I'm having to do right now is really trust in the unknowns, which sometimes can be really hard for me. And this is kind of what started the conversation with Spirit, is that I can tune in for a bunch of people and give them A, B, C, and D and all this stuff that detail the information and this and this and this. And then I'll go to tune in for myself and I'll just get these tiny little snippets. And instead of fighting the snippets and being worried about the snippets that I'm getting that don't quite make sense and it doesn't quite give me the answer, and why can't I get the answer if I can get the answer in a reading but I can't hear for me, oftentimes the lesson in that for me is trusting when I don't know the answer. Being okay when I don't know because I'm used to knowing. Right? And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting aspect. Because there's a deep journey and a deep learning in experiencing that, in the not knowing, for me, especially where I can tune into spirit and often get an answer or an understanding. So there's benefits. So again, ask yourself which parts are triggering you, or which parts are creating an unease within you, and walk into that and see why it's there. And once I release that need to have to know, I actually found a lot of freedom in just being very human. And I mean human in just being very 3D, very much just a part of this world, doing the things of this world, including relaxing. Like, I can look like I'm relaxing, but my mind is never relaxing. And that's a big lesson Spirit's trying to teach me right now, is how to have my mind relax. Because I could be sitting outside, say reading a book in the sun, and I can be reading the book at the same time having a conversation with Spirit in my mind. Or I can be, say, gardening or planting my vegetables in the back, but at the same time my mind is having these cosmic conversations about this and this and this, and I'm figuring out this, and I'm thinking, oh, I got to mention this, and I got to write this down, and I got to do this. And for me, it's about quieting that. And by doing that is me not knowing certain things. So they're trying this thing, and I'm having to surrender to it, and I'm actually enjoying the journey of surrendering when I'm not fighting it, because I was fighting it for a while. So again, just an example of how if there's something you're fighting, maybe consider why are you and how you can surrender to it. And then you may learn something pretty beautiful. Like for me, I actually was like, wow, this is relaxing. I'm actually sitting here doing nothing. And this was yesterday. It was amazing. I actually did nothing. So, food for thought. Okay, now the next thing they wanted to say was that the only way to end a dark night of the soul is to go through it. And technically we all know that, but it's a great reminder. The only way through it is to do it, is to walk into the flames, to walk towards it instead of running from it. And we've talked about that a lot. But just remember, if you find that you're fighting it, stop, turn around, and walk towards it. And you'll notice whatever the fear is, the trigger, whatever the thing is that is pestering you, it probably won't look as big as it is. And if it is big, and if it is as big as you thought, well, now you know how big it is. And now you can start to formulate your plan to move through it and transcend it And that in itself is a gift, because then you know where to start. When we're running from even knowing where to start. And so they wanted to say some of the things that we can do is to remember, again, as I mentioned, the dark night of the soul becomes a saving grace. And we always come out stronger and smarter and wiser. This is what humanity does. Every time that there's a dark night of the soul, something that goes on, humanity grows leaps and bounds after. And that's what we're doing. But we're still in the midst of it. And so we have to keep going through it, but going through it with a higher vibration, a heart-based vibration, a recognition of our own choices and what we're doing, what we're judging, what we're releasing, what we're running from. And then the other thing was to really call on your tribe, call on your people. I know we can't physically see people right now, but we still have, we're blessed with technology. We can phone someone, we can text, we can FaceTime, we can Zoom. And if that's what we have access to right now, that is way better than what would have been before. And that's somewhere to start. That's somewhere where we can start to call in the help that we need, the reassuring ear, the accountability coach, if it's workouts you're doing or whatever it may be. We have access to those things. And so when we start creating those by actively fostering those relationships, we start creating this rising of consciousness and energy. The collective energy vibe will go up. And also I want to say the Avalon Spirit Facebook group, you guys, that is a great group. It's a great tribe of people putting in positive insights. I'm on there every day. It's meant to uplift and to talk about the stuff happening, but in consciousness and in kindness. So if you're looking for a tribe, check it out, the Avalon Spirit group on Facebook. And then the last thing they wanted to say was that your guides are constantly encouraging you through signs and synchronicities. Signs, songs, numbers. We talked about number patterns being huge. Different images. For example, I'll share a little story. Just the other day, I was asking one of my guides from the other side to really come through and show me they were there. Because again, I was going through this phase where I'm like, I can get stuff in readings in seconds. Sometimes I'm not even done tuning in and the reading is already happening. I haven't even said my gratitude and opening mantras and intentions and prayers, and they're already there talking, right? And then I'll go and tune in for me, and I'm kind of like, where are you? And I can see they're there, but they're not talking to me. Anyways, I said, okay, listen, I would really like a super tangible sign that you are around, just super tangible, just so that I can release any little bit of doubt, because right now I'm doubting and I'm not really sitting in my highest vibe because I'm getting frustrated in this. So instead of just staying frustrated, I asked for help and I said, I would like you to show me a stellar jay. So stellar jay, some people call them blue jays, but they're the really dark, they're not the light colored blue jay. The stellar jay is the really dark one, that dark kind of teal, aqua blue with the black head. We have them around here, but we don't have them in our yard very often at all. And so I said, show me one. And so kind of left it at that. And I was sort of not expecting to see it, kind of hoping, but just kind of feeling a little sorry for myself. And the next morning, we're getting in the car to go to school. And my daughter's like, Mom, there's 2 Gellersays outside. She says Gellersays. I was like, you mean stellar jays? She's like, yeah, those. She's like, they're making a nest in the front tree. And I thought, no way. No way. I literally asked for this yesterday. So my heart felt pretty full and I was pretty happy about that. But then later in the day, I was like, okay, was that just circumstantial? And I know better, but still, I have these moments, right? And so I was sitting in the backyard and I said, okay, listen, I recognize the jays in the yard this morning. Thank you so much. I'm like, but can you show me one more time? I'm like, can you just, and I'm talking inside my head. I'm like, can you just like swoop in the backyard here and land? That would prove it to me. And thinking like, okay, that's a tall order to ask, like, do this now. And honestly, you guys, literally 2 minutes or less, this jay swoops into the backyard and lands maybe 5-6 feet in front of me. And then the second one swoops in and lands right on the fence. And they hang out there for about 5 minutes. And so I thought, okay, I got it. And I mean, that's my example, but this truly is how the guides are saying, listen, we are around and we will show you in signs and synchronicities, numbers, music, animals, because remember I said, animals are deeply connected to this consciousness grid. They get it more than we do. And so they're very receptive right now to bringing through messages from spirit. And so with the story I shared, I can tell you, I'm experiencing that right now. So trust in the signs that come through. Those signs are there to support you so that the spirit world on the other side can be a part of your tribe. But that doesn't take away from having your tribe here in 3D, the people around you that bring you support, encouragement, and love as we move through this dark night of the soul. Because you guys, we are transcending so fast at such a rapid rate. And sometimes when we're stuck in the sludge of it, it feels like it's never ending, but it really is moving fast. And that's what we agreed to as a collective on December 21st, 2020, when we jumped into that faster timeline and trajectory. So I say all of this with so much love in my heart for you all, because we're all moving through it. And again, if you are already good and you're there and you're waiting, then you're just cheering everybody on. And I thank you so much for that. And to everybody else who's moving through it, whether their own experiences, deeply or surface level, wherever you are, keep going, keep loving and ascending and growing and being kind and compassion for yourself and for others, because that is truly how we change the world. So I'll leave that with you guys. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please do like and share and subscribe. Also, check out avalonspirit.com. We have some amazing offerings there, not only just our Lightworker mentorship circle, where I'm helping people learn how to tap into their own gifts and abilities, to the Cosmic Consciousness Circle, where we go way out there in cosmic info. If you're interested in the real goods of what's going on, check that out. Same with the Avalon Spirit Club that Lois is leading. She talks about different interesting aspects of raising your consciousness. And then we also have the Divine Ceremony boxes. Check those out on avalonspirit.com. These are these beautiful Divine Ceremony boxes to help bring more sacred ceremony into your life. So whether that be a sacred bath, connecting to your guides, there's a box for that. There's a box to connect into your own self-love, and but there's a box for home protection. There's so much and so much more coming down the pipe. So stay tuned. Again, thank you all so much, and I wish for you a beautiful day.